So this exercise is interesting in that it shows a couple of things. One, mass forms don't have to be just building forms or just building activities. They could be shading elements that affect the design, like representations of trees. They could also be things like photovoltaic cells that you can design so that you can adjust the tilt. And that might be important because you can measure from your model things like insulation values on the surface of the mass forms themselves. An important feature here is the ability to swap out one mass family for another. So you could start with something at a lower level of detail and then swap it out with another mass family that represents, say, an activity at a higher level of detail. You're combining these mass families to create the building, but you're also able to swap them out as needed to create design options. You'll then be able to continue that process by arranging what energy settings you want to have for the building, the weather, creating maybe design options for different layouts, then analysing the building towards whatever design goal you're working, and then making decisions based on the results. So continuing the idea of using mass families like building blocks to assemble a building at an early conceptual design stage, realise that if you've got mass families there, you could use them to swap things out in the project. For example, under the mass assembly hall, if I've got the assembly hall but with a barrel roof as an option, I could do that. I could also use mass families for other things, not just activities. I can use them for anything I want, but the example I want to show you is if I say, let's import a family, and I'm going to go back to my folder and look at forms. Right? So I could be thinking about solar panels. I could be thinking about trees in different forms. I could be thinking about other building components like stairwells or roofs, things like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring them all in just to use them as an example of how you might update your projects. You're starting to move a bit more towards the exploration of options in your mass model. If I look in my browser, I can see, for example, if I pick the tree conical, I'm going to bring it in. Now, it's interesting to note that you can place it on the work plane, the level 1, level 2 of the building, but you can also place it on faces. Right? And I'm going to use this just to illustrate the point. It's kind of easier to see that as I move on the surface, you can see that the model itself, the mass family itself, adjusts to the face of that. So you could imagine, assembling things. I'm going to pick the option that says work plane. I'm just going to drop a tree in here, and then maybe I'll get a tree round, bring that in on a level, placing it around here somewhere. Let me switch on the shadows just so you can see the options there. And then the other options that I'd shown when I brought things in were the solar rack. If I pick the 30 by 8, I can bring that in, and I could start to think, well, now just placing it on a face, see how that's turning to adjust to the face that I'm placing it on. I'm going to place it on the roof, and for the moment I'm just going to eyeball it in to show how I might go about arranging these. So I might, at a later stage, be interested in finding out just how much energy do I get from this surface. I wanted to show you that the mass families themselves can be parametric, so that if, for example, I picked the tree and I said that its height was 60 feet, or that its canopy height was only 10 feet off the ground, you see that I can make adjustments there. And similarly, if I pick on the PV rack here, I could go and I could tell it, what if the angle needed to be less pronounced. So matching it maybe with the latitude of the site itself. I could adjust the slope to get the angle that I want. So all of that can be parametric, giving you families that you can assemble, but also you can control to modify the size.